Good evening. I'm Trudy McFall. I live at 205 Scott Drive, Annapolis, Maryland. I have been attending, or my representative, virtually all of the workshops on the budget, so I understand the time that you've all spent and the difficult challenges that you've faced. It's hard duty and very serious duty. I wanted to add my thoughts tonight about my concerns both about what I don't see in the budget and some concerns about what I do see in the budget, and my very serious concern that we basically are not looking at a balanced budget. If I might, let me start with what I don't see in the budget. One of them, and a huge thing and a major source of concern to the citizens of Annapolis, is what about the settlement of the market house and the legal costs and all of the other costs that we will incur relative to the market house in the year ahead. I understand I think I understand that such things as settlements come out of the reserve funds, but I think of any budget, an item of this magnitude has to be discussed, and we as citizens have to understand where it would come from, with the capability of the reserve fund for absorbing that kind of a hit, and what are the consequences on our bond rating and other issues relative to that settlement. I just can't fathom that it's appropriate to pass a budget with that great big thing hanging over our heads without addressing it for the public as best you can. I understand you're not going to put every dollar down that you think you might have to pay out, but some discussion about where it'll come from, how we'll pay for it, and what the downside consequences might be of that settlement. Secondly, sidewalk repair. Over a year ago, you reached the conclusion that the sidewalk fee was a tax, not a fee. I went to some workshops on how we were going to pay for this and looked at flow charts and dollar amounts, and we're seeing figures in the neighborhood of $1 million plus. And that is totally absent from this budget of any way that you propose to deal with the sidewalk repair of this city. The sidewalks in this city are a mess. They're getting worse because they're not being repaired, and I'm just astonished that you haven't articulated in this budget how do we plan to pay for the responsibility we took on for sidewalks. The new rec center operating budget, according to the budget, it says we have $1 million that we don't know how we're going to put into the budget to operate this new rec center. I'm told, oh, there's some contingency fund over here that somebody says might be $300,000, somebody says might be $7, but the fact of the matter is, whatever the gap is, it seems to be huge. Lastly, there's a set of departmental enhancements. I'm sure some of them are dreams and hopes, but I heard testimony from the director of the Central Service who talked about 8 items that were, quote him, critical, life-threatening, or illegal if we didn't do them, and they're not in the budget. I would assume if even half of that rhetoric is true, some of those are going to have to go into the budget at a later date, whether or not we want to fess up to them and put them in at the front end. And lastly, as has been mentioned, we've got all the nonprofit grants that I know you receive great pressure to fund. That's what's not in. They look to me like they add up into several millions of dollars. What's in is $2.7 million in raises for the staff. If you take out the police and fire, it's over $1 million in raises, 5.6%. I'm an owner of a business. We're getting no pay increases this year. I don't know any place you can look to get 5.6% pay increase in a hard time, except being mayor of Annapolis. If you adopt your budget, you'll pay the mayor $99,000, I see, and that person will get a 43% increase, although most, like me, have said they wouldn't take it if you did it. So, and then lastly, it was, Doug mentioned it already, overtime. I think there's almost, I understand there's almost $2 million in overtime in this budget. I mean, what kind of way is that to run a railroad? These are well-compensated employees, and every department gets to have overtime on top of that. I'm exceeding my time. I think it's a distressing legacy. I think you're not done yet. I think you have to put real costs in And then you have to see how much you got to cut to match the real costs that are not yet in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.